Okay, we started.
Okay, we've started. So I'm looking at this, and this just looks like too much activity in here to me. But you got to realize, or I've got to realize, I'm calming myself by thinking that that's because all of this is pale. Everything around it's pale, so this feels stronger than it is. And I have proven to myself last Saturday that that is the truth. Okay, so what we really should do, though, now that I said that, what we really should do maybe is put a little bit of pale sky in here. You know, someone mentioned that the white of the page didn't look quite snowy.
Mhm.
It might be because the page is really a little bit warmer, and when we think of a snowy day, you know, without any sun, which this doesn't have, it's always kind of cool, gray looking. So much as I wanted to do the brilliance that I have planned for later, I think
Stay
that
tuned.
yes, that maybe what we really need is a little bit of sky in here first, and that's going to be like a big wet wash. So I'm mixing some gray, and and this is just out of stuff that's already in here, really. But I want it to have just a slight bluish cast. Not, you don't want it to be blue, that will read wrong. But maybe something about like that. So that's thinned out, but we're going to thin it out some more because we're going to pre-wet this. And you can see over here, there is a bit of a line back there where the sky or something more happens back there. And I think we do want a little bit of that. And he's bluer over here, and he gets weaker, less of it as he goes to the right. Also, maybe there's places that we want to leave a little bit of, I don't know whether to leave some white. I can't make up my mind. All right, that's just typical, isn't it?
I left white.
Okay, so let's see yours.
Yours looks good. Yeah, that was pretty.
Okay, yeah, that works. That works. Okay. Well, I unfortunately I've already wet mine. Okay. So all I'm going to do is, let's see, I've got quite a bit of water down here now. Left some places out, but I'll start up in this corner. Oh, that's gray. Is that cool enough? Or does it need a little more blue in it? I don't know. Huh? More blue? Okay. Let's put a little... Oh, uh-oh.
It's wrong blue.
That may be stronger than... Okay. Now, this is going to get lighter. So, let's pull something like that in. But we need a little cool cast in here, I think. But I want to keep it very, very weak. And that doesn't mean it has to cover every spot. Maybe something that subtle. Should we put it? Yeah, you know what? I'm going to add whites down here later. So I think I'll just leave that alone. A little sense of land, maybe, which that's optional, obviously. Okay, so I know that makes for a real slow start of the day, but let's do something like that and let it set.
You don't want to do the trees in the upper right corner?
No, because I didn't keep that dry for one reason. And for another reason, I really want a little color in this. Oop, that's a little more than I wanted. So we're going to add that. In fact, that's the next thing that we'll do because we want to get a real strong dark in here. Now it is. Okay. okay. We need a secret signal or, okay. One of the things I was going to mention, these aren't real dark, but they're fairly dark. If you get these a little too light, a little too weak, they won't do the job of balancing the texture. On the other hand, if you've got a paler, weaker texture, that might work. But know that these, here you have all texture, and here you have these defined shapes with these crisp edges. And so these kind of create some balance for that. Okay, so let's mix up some more gray. I might even use some indigo just to get, to get dark faster. Some indigo and some burnt umber. And the buildings are maybe a little bit warmer color than the snow. Some of them are. Oh dear, I don't know what that looks like. Well, I'll just put it on a building and we'll find out the hard way. So if I had my little half-inch brush with me, which would have been smart, I would use it here.
Do you want one?
No, I'm good. So, no, don't look for it, Linda. It's okay. But flat brushes are especially nice when you're working with something like this because they just kind of encourage straight shapes. And I'm not going to worry about where the sun's coming from. It's just no sun anyway. You know, you may have some sides that are a little lighter or darker than others, but there's not much there to go on, and I think it works. So this still isn't as dark as this, and it's wet. So I know that I need to pile on some more. So we're going to do things like that. I would possibly make the roof a tiny bit paler. This maybe the same thing as what he's got there, but maybe just a tiny bit weaker in color, or maybe a little more blue to it. I don't know. Let's see. Let's just go. And the thing about it is, if you get it too dark, you can just blot it or suck some of the color up. Oh, there's some color running into the barn, the side of the barn. No problem. Okay, that's a little too dark there, so I'll just squeeze my brush out and pull up. I kind of like, as long as I'm working really juicy, maybe putting color down a little stronger, knowing that I can pull it up rather than the other way around. Okay, so we've got a building like that, and you could do these. You could put some detail in them too, but the kind of choppy block shapes are really the important, that's the design part. You don't want to get so caught up in detail that you lose the you know, this general block actually adds something to it. Okay, so that's the buildings. I don't need to do more about the buildings with you. Now, this area up here is really helpful because it gets us a real strong dark. And the dark has a little bit of a blue edge to it. Looks like the color's separated there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and add water around where I'm going to put the color on, but not exactly where the color goes, so that I can have soft, runny edges. The other thing is that I don't want the paint to suddenly run out there and do a whole lot. So what I'm doing is I'm kind of letting this soak in a little bit, and then I'm going to pull up some of the moisture so that it's just a little bit wet. Of course, you could sit here and watch water dry too. Oh, that's kind of hard to see.
Actually, I was getting a real nice gleam off of it on this camera.
Oh, really? Cool. Oh, you might have to watch the video. Okay, so let's just what I'm going to do is I'm going to cheat a little bit. I like that blue, but I want to be sure I get it. And I'm not so convinced that my colors are going to separate here. So let's, again, we're working really juicy. And right here, we're on dry paper.
There it goes.
Oh, there we found some wet. So I'm going to come back and get the, no, let's get the indigo. Because the indigo is a little lower color. Oh. Well, that might be too much. Well, what am I going to do? Well, first I'm going to pull this down here into that. And then, oh, gee. Well, let's see what we can do. Let's wash that brush out. This is what you do if you made the mistake. It's not how it has to go. You're welcome to do it better than I did. Okay. But part of what I'm going to do is I'm just pulling up some of that. There's where I had a bunch of water down that I didn't notice. Oh, look, it's starting to actually kind of look like a picture. Now, the other thing is tilted up because it's running that way. Obviously, if I didn't have that problem, I wouldn't tilt it. But let's just, that's a kind of a funny shape right there. We better, there, okay. I think that's not going to be anywhere near dark enough. What I'm really looking for is a pretty strong dark. So here I'm putting more color in, which is going to create a problem because that needs to stay tilted up. What I really should do is mix thicker paint. The other possibility is that I could go let it dry and then go back over it, which is what I'm going to suggest that I'm going to do here. But you may get it in one whack, which would be better. All right, so I'm pulling that up because I don't want it to run back the other way. And because I want to demonstrate something else, I don't want to leave this tilted up. All right, so now we're coming to trees. These trees are, many of them are really, really dark, particularly the ones in the foreground. And you notice they look like really like they're trees. Because we want to avoid, you know what we want to avoid. I'll do it here. We want to avoid something that looks like
Palm tree.
this. And those curvy lines. You know, there are curvy lines in these trees, but they're, I don't want it rubbing off on my painting. But they still have that awkwardness, you know. All right. So what I'm going to suggest, first, you need a really strong paint mixture, which I unfortunately did not make. So I'm going to pull a little bit of color over here, and then I'm going to put in thicker color. You could even use, if you've got some black, you could use black. You could use blue and brown is kind of my go-to because I never have black out here. So I want it, I don't want it totally thick because I want it to be juicy enough to flow off my brush. Oh, I know what I went off and forgot because I have, you know, one of those, you might want to use a liner brush or something rather than this. So here's what I'm going to suggest. We have several things going on here. I have 2 sticks and I have another stick I didn't get out. All right. A lot of the time people use a stick like this because there's less control and it looks more, you know, not contrived. That's not why I picked this. I picked this because it was thin and it was there. Okay, so let's see what we can get this to do. So the thing is, dipping it into there is a no-go. So there's a couple other techniques. One would be, let's see, let's come over. I want to go where it's going to show up. But the other thing is you might want to practice this on a scrap, okay? Which is what I wish I was doing. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start out with some tree shape that is pretty pretty strong paint, but it's still fluid enough to flow off the brush. And then I might just try pulling out some limbs. They don't pull out very far though, that's the problem. See, that's not going to get me much of a tree. Here's the other thing, because you can't really dip this, but you can paint it on. So I want to paint it on and enough that it's going to flow off of this. Okay, here we go. Oh, there's a drip. Okay, let's see what we get here. Oh, a tree painted with a tree.
That's one in a row. You gotta quit while you're ahead.
I know, yeah. You know, you say that a lot of the time. Okay, so.
It's my philosophy of life.
No, it's not.
Quit while you're ahead.
Quit while you're ahead. Well, it might be. I don't know when you've ever quit. Okay.
They haven't gotten ahead yet.
That's why.
Oh, this is not like his trees. His trees are tall and slender. Mine is stubby and sprawling. But you get the idea. Look at that. Look at
What
that.
they do.
Oh, and you do get a certain awkwardness with a stick. That it's partly because it kind of grabs in the paper instead of sliding over, and as it grabs, you get that's the best tree yet, except for the shape. But that's okay. Let's do one more. And by the way, I've got more sticks over there. They're not this slender, but I could cut some. I just sharpened these with a razor blade. So here's the thing, though. Look how dark that tree is. Now, all of a sudden, this stuff doesn't feel quite as strong, does it? And it's got those nice little shapes that kind of compete with this. Maybe not enough. I may still have to do something about all that. I think I'll just put a little more color in this. The darker this gets, the weaker that gets. That's my brilliant plan. Okay, so over here. Let's do the closer in the tree is, the bigger around it ought to be, but you know, let's. Okay, so again, I'm just gonna paint that on the stick, and I see I'm tilting the stick and painting all around it and letting it run down. So it's actually getting a flow from all the sides of the stick, not just one area. You know, and you can. You know, want some of those places thicker. You know, I may have to work with it, but you can see how you could do this. Need more paint. And the blunter the point, the bigger the line you're going to get, too. So I made a pretty fine point here, but maybe this point may be a little too fine. Maybe that's not the best size of point. Because I'm getting little fine lines. Or you could be really Cadillac about this. You could have a fine point, and then you could sharpen a dollar point on the other end and be a 2-point person.
2 points.
Yeah, I think that would be
Without
good.
getting it on your clothes. Without getting it on your clothes.
Yeah, well, possibly.
You have a wet end and a dry end.
And so the other thing is you could also get some other fine lines in here if you wanted. Now, again, you could do this with a brush, but you just get a little bit more of that awkward, jerky thing going because, and on a paper that has some texture, it's probably more successful than a smooth paper. All right, so what you're doing is you're making this, which, see, I've got to go back and darken that. You're making your buildings, and, you know, give them a certain amount of unity, you know, a certain amount of strength there. And then you've got a whole lot of trees to do, but you got to finish your buildings before you can really do your trees. I'm just trying to get this part all in one video. And then we will come back and we will do brilliant finishing.
Brilliant.
Thank you.